My name is Sarah Sherman. I work for the Bloomsbury Learning Environment as a service manager there. We have a shared VLE. It isn't Moodle. We're thinking about moving to Moodle, so don't go home tonight and say, the Bloomsbury Learning Environment are moving to Moodle, because we're not sure yet. But I think the reason I was asked to come along and chair the session is that I used to work at Ulcc, so my old friends there asked me to wrote me in. So we've got 3 shorter papers this afternoon. We're going to start very soon. I'm going to hand you over to Jago from Stanmore College. Each presentation is going to be 20 minutes, and that gives us about 5 minutes for questions and answers after each presentation. So Jago's presentation from you work at Stanmore College is serving and including your communities, Mahoodle and more. So I'm going to pass you over.
That. I'll put that in my pocket. Okay, yeah, so I'm Jago Brown from Stanmore College, and I'm the e-learning coordinator, which means I'm the kind of manage e-learning services there. I administrate the Moodle, I do teacher training. Don't tell John. He's one of our science lecturers here. And I get involved in bits of development. We're kind of working with Ulcc here. So my title is Serving and Including Your Communities, Mahoodle and More. How do we increase access, support lifelong learning in our communities, as well as improve learning services for our enrolled students? So I'm kind of looking at this kind of shift from accountability to government to accountability to civil society, which is a kind of a change for colleges, and it might seem a technicality, but I'm starting to kind of think about that and the way we deliver kind of services. Just wait for you to sit down. Yeah. So I'm kind of looking throughout this, the difference between those students who are enrolled in our courses and those who just live in the area who might want some kind of support and services without being enrolled in our courses. So what I've done is I've kind of taken a really kind of broad overview and look at all the different types of e-learning services available. And, you know, we're all familiar with Moodle as a kind of course management software, and Mahoodle as an e-portfolio. And we all, as institutions, we might have a library. We might have a system which allows students to book computers, or they have to just go to a help desk and book a computer. Although it would be nice if the students could book their computers from home, things like that. So we have library management systems. We provide access to the UK Federation, which are lots of resources in a big network. The country is broken down into grids. So the London Grid for Learning allows students to log in with one username and password at their schools, but then also access all the resources within that network, which is quite useful. So at the top, we've got kind of Open Learn and resources which are freely available, which you can kind of import into your Moodle, or you can reuse resources. At the bottom, we've got kind of internet resources, kind of Web 2 resources available to everybody. One thing I'm really quite interested in is developing a question of feedback, a kind of learning service, which I'll kind of talk a bit more about later. Ask questions. I may kind of defer it to the end, but do stop me. So, as I've said, if you're enrolled in a particular institution, quite a lot of us have a course management system, Moodle and Mahoodle. We have libraries, but what does for people, those enrolled students, they'll enroll on a course. Of course, the institution will provide services, and there'll be lots of formative learning processes that take place at different forms. And at the end, there'll be an examination where they'll be produced, they'll get a certificate. And I'm kind of interested in the kind of tracking those formative learning processes a bit more within the course. But what happens if you're not enrolled in one of those courses, but you've got a college very close to where you live, and we have the threat that libraries might be taken away? Where are you going to get information about where clubs are, or be able to book places on a computer find, search for books and so on. I think there's a bit of a gap between, the systems that, our colleges have and the council kind of website. And I'm kind of looking at that kind of space there. Ways that we can help kind of citizens, in a particular borough, maybe find others with similar interests, and ways of kind of logging your lifelong learning. So I'm going to go and look at the things we actually do quite well, because as institutions, a lot of us are kind of getting together and we're developing bits and pieces to help the kind of personalisation of learning. So these are pages within our Moodle. This is a kind of a student dashboard, if you like, overview of different bits of information. So we've got attendance there, we've got the overall status. These are ways of kind of tracking students and how they're performing. We've got the kind of aggregate of their attendance and punctuality. We have academic action plans. We have a log where teachers can log bits of information. So we're getting quite good at this. We also have like a little kind of block in Moodle, which is like a kind of just an overview before they see this. So every time they log in, they immediately see that. And this is starting to bring in kind of gradebook data, like academic data from the courses, gradebooks, which we're starting to work on a bit more, which I'll show you. So Stanmore, maybe Barnsley College are looking at bringing in data from course gradebooks, pulling it into the reports page, so we can help track. So this might be the end of the first half term, end of the second half term. So the students, parents, can all keep an eye on what's going on. And this is a tutor overview. So these are all kind of things we're developing for our enrolled students. So we're doing quite a lot for them. And it's having benefits. People are being able to track and see where they are, where they stand at different points of time. So this is a grade book for a course, and this is a kind of an overview. But again, the overview at the moment doesn't give any academic data. It's just giving kind of the target grade for a particular student. It's giving the kind of attendance, action plans. So they might have other bits of data relating to how they're doing their particular subjects. I'll have a drink. So I'll just go over this briefly. So you might be aware of Moodle hubs as a way of bringing in, it's kind of an organised way of being able to import resources into your course or download whole courses into your own Moodle. And I've already talked a little bit about London Grid for Learning. It's quite useful kind of developments. We're about to set up a shared Mahoodle with another college down the road from us, Harrow College, and what I've been looking at is how we kind of organise that, and maybe we look at at a later date expanding it so it can include members from the public from around the borough to kind of maybe fill that gap between council websites and the kind of static information they have and the ability for people to find people with similar interests. So there might, you could put content for like the Harrow Sustainability Group in a Mahoodle and allow both students in the colleges to work on it and develop it, and you might actually have a 6 monthly meeting. But the other part of it is that we might do similar courses, say hair and beauty, and they might be in various forms. They might be kind of quite distinctly separated, but then we might have a group that kind of brings them together so they can share within Mahoodle, so they can share certain bits of information, and they then have the possibility of linking up with people in business courses, and they can set up pages. They're free to kind of develop their own pages, which might help them set up sort of businesses like student enterprise businesses, that kind of thing, from which then they can link out to other kind of sites which they've set up. Okay, so moving on a bit. So we've looked at these various systems, and one of the kind of issues that comes up is you've got these different kind of navigation kind of styles, if you like. This is for the library, this is Mahoodle, and to make it easier and quicker, do we need to start looking at ways of kind of integrating and having a common kind of form of navigation, which is what this is starting to look at. So if, for instance, you were somebody living in a community and you weren't enrolled in the course, it might be good if we could start to work towards a situation where you could put in your postcode and maybe your electoral roll number or a learner number, your neat learner number, and you'd get maybe just a common set of items in a menu. You might get just a link to the local library, ability to book a computer, information about some of the general information. So it's a bit of personalising a bit of the information that you get when you log in as a student to a place. We're working on all that kind of personalised data. If we can do that maybe for other people in our communities. So that's that. I mentioned a little bit, in our tutor overview we have target grades, so that a student has a kind of an aspirational target grade within each of their subjects, which they can aim for, and the teachers use it as a kind of a benchmark to get to. So Key Stage 3 data is passed back, and there's an organisation called Yellis that produces a report which enables, or gives a kind of prediction about the kind of grade a student might get for all the subjects they've chosen at GCSE. And there's a similar kind of organisation which does it for level 3, so A levels and BTECs. They look at the GCSE grades and they make predictions about a student's grade at A level. There are other systems. I mean, this slide is really looking at those kind of the value of having a shared, a kind of central database. Turnitin is, I suppose, an example where that is analysing documents that lots of students put up, and it's looking for similarity across institutions and within institutions between those texts. Midas is an institute, kind of, I suppose it's not an institution, it's just a service which enables students, institutions to compare how their different students are kind of behaving within the year, if they're dropping out, and whether they're from different kinds of ethnic groups, and if they're they can spot patterns. Okay. So, as I said, I've kind of done this kind of overarching kind of view of what's kind of going on with our learning systems and how we might improve them and the kind of areas we might improve. And one kind of area that kind of stands out is that there seems to be kind of, I suppose, a slight lack of development is building, firstly, a kind of repository of questions which can be shared, and they can be kind of crafted and evolved. Because actually setting the concept of a question in Moodle, you can develop quite complex questions which have feedback and managed in lots of different, quite interesting and clever ways. So it can take quite a lot of time to develop questions. So developing a repository is an idea where people could contribute, and there might be reviews, and you might develop them for kind of knowledge-based things and also for kind of preference-based kind of quizzes that maybe look at people's learning styles. So, and this gets around the problem. I mean, we've just had a week in our tutorial system where we've looked at money skills, and there's a program called Barclays Money Skills, and we were going to ask all the tutors to log in, set up new username and passwords, and access various resources, and the students would do their quiz on that site. But then we wouldn't actually have the results for those students. So I kind of asked these people if they'd give me the quiz that I could import, and they did. They actually gave me the whole Moodle course. But this is happening a lot. I see it happening a lot through the year, wanting to set up things that are already out there, and then this is about being able to set that up quickly. But what I'm suggesting here is actually we look very kind of closely at the results that come back for those quizzes, and we can start to kind of develop a collective intelligence about how students are responding to those types of questions, and then at points be able to give back interesting and useful kind of feedback within the year based on those responses. I was here at the unconference yesterday, so I was talking to developers a bit, and they kind of picked up on the repository bit. They didn't really pick up so much on the kind of feedback, because the idea is that if you have certain kind of questions in certain kind of, if you have, say, knowledge-based questions, which might be to do with your subject, it might be vocabulary, you can start. So, for instance, a student, it might be able to spot if a student's performing badly in certain assignments because they lack some vocabulary. And if you've got like information in a grade book or kind of a question grade book, you can start to kind of spot those patterns. So what I'm kind of suggesting here is that if we develop a system which kind of evolves the kind of question bank we have in Moodle, so you have effectively you create a set of data of students' responses to particular types of questions and how so they might be graded, and you see their last response, and you see the kind of feedback they've used. If you've got you see the kind of feedback they've used if you've got questions which give kind of directions and hints of how to kind of get to the right answer. You might have certain feedback. You could see how they're using that number of attempts. But then if you pull this back to a kind of a central repository of responses, you can start to develop algorithms to look at patterns and see how people are behaving. So you might be able to look at the data and say, well, okay, in their learning styles survey, they've kind of suggested they don't like participating in lessons, and they, maybe don't put up their hand enough, and they're also so their kind of vocabulary, because they're not talking enough and participating enough in lessons, that kind of thing might start to show up, and you might be able to get little kind of hints back about that could help within the year that the teacher might not be picking up because they're too busy. So this kind of goes over that. So you might organise it so that you have the ability for students to go in and do any question at any time as a part of a kind of self-testing. They might be able to do that from a mobile, just go in at any time and do that. But you'd also probably want kind of set quizzes at certain times to make sure that every student had done those questions, or at least you're aware if they've done it or they haven't. Okay, so as I said, it was quite a broad overview of kind of learning services and things we might develop. So I'm just ending with a few questions. Should government funding be doing more to influence and develop VLE, ePortfolio and resource management systems for the benefit of our learners and future generations? I've kind of, in a way, asked quite a lot of questions about the way we've got some quite good bits of software that kind of parts of our community are developing. I mean, we should be taking it more seriously and looking to extend its value and its use. So this one is: should all communities be able to access free learning resources in a structured way and be able to study simply and quickly? This was the kind of be able to kind of log in somewhere and get a kind of a link to be able to book a computer, or like the London Libraries Consortium, be able to search for books. We have quite a lot of students who come to kind of Harrow, Stanmore College, but actually live in Brent or kind of Dagenham, and the kind of local authorities that sign up to this consortium, we could actually have a link which enables to search the library at home, so while at college, so they can kind of access resources more kind of simply. And finally, should all learners be able to more readily access personalised, intelligent, self-diagnostic tests and guidance information to progress their lifelong learning? So that question kind of obviously relates to kind of evolving a question and feedback kind of system. So I'll kind of stop there.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Jago's put together some really interesting questions for us to think about how our community is working together. Does anyone have any questions for him? The question was, we would like copies of the presentation, and I think they will be made available. That's something we'll have to talk to the conference organisers about, but I'm pretty sure everything will be available. Any other questions about the work that Jago's been doing? Yeah.
I was interested in when you were saying you wanted some consistency in the navigation between Mahara. I didn't quite understand how you achieved that.
So the question's about consistency in the interfaces of Mahara and Moodle.
You would, first of all, you'd have kind of a list of the kind of things they have access to, and from that you kind of build a menu of all, the links that they would have. So, for instance, very simply, if they're not enrolled in your institution, and we had something like that, they would only get a certain number of links to almost publicly accessible places, or some of it, if they put in a postcode, you could give them information on the kind of 5-mile radius, and if you give them your electoral register number, they can give you more information. So what the menu you get built for you depends on the information it has about you.
Like mobile applications.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of this access to these things does require things like a unique learner number, some common bit of information that can kind of link all these things together. And it's not just kind of a community college that might need to do this. Universities often want to be able to work out which of the students who've kind of looked at their websites and been interested in them actually end up being students. And at the moment, we have no kind of common currency, and we have the standards work really well. We have like a common gauge railway, and we have 240 volts for electricity, and it's about kind of establishing those kind of standards. And
so is part of that also tracking who's looking at stuff?
Well, you could use it for that. There's a kind of plethora of things you can use, but you need some groundwork needs to be in place so you can do all this.
Okay. Thank you very much.